Let's continue our conversation with former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who is Skyping in from Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. Mike, you have not been shy in offering some criticisms of what has gone on in Ferguson. Would you like to expand on some of those thoughts?
Well, first of all, I find it just incredibly dangerous that you have members of Congress on the floor of Congress holding up their hands in the hands up, don't shoot position, as if to say that somehow that is going to get you shot. I'm going to tell you something. What gets you shot is when you grab a police officer's gun and you lunge at him and you try to hit him in the face. And this nonsense of telling young people, don't hold up your hands because that's going to get you in trouble. And instead, I guess what they're teaching them is go loot a store, beat up a cop, reach for his gun, hope you get it before he does. This is not only foolish and dangerous, but it's really on the verge of anarchy. And I'm just disgusted that you have NFL players, politicians, and others who, no matter what the evidence reveals, no matter how many sworn testimonies show, that Darren Wilson, it's a tragedy that the young man got shot. But this is a young man who had just roughed up a store owner, just robbed a store, and now he's going after a cop's gun. And it's a horrible thing that he was killed, but he could have avoided that if he'd have behaved like something other than a thug.
Mike, the man identified in press accounts as his stepfather has now been charged with inciting violence. When you look at the situation that both the National Guard and the police were confronting in Ferguson Thanksgiving week, was there too much passivity on the part of the National Guard and the Ferguson police?
Well, let's be very clear. The National Guard can only follow the orders of the governor. The governor in this case was absolutely, probably the most derelict governor I've ever seen in face of the kind of duty that he should have exercised. His use of the National Guard was disgusting and deplorable. There's no point in bringing the Guard in if you're not going to put them in front of the stores and keep people from running in and looting them. And Governor Jay Nixon, if he finishes out his term, will do it with disgrace because of the absolutely just disgusting manner in which he's handled this. In the case of the Ferguson police, they're in a tough spot. Have they handled everything beautifully? No. But no matter what they do, they're going to be criticized. And one of the things that I felt most just horrendous was when you had the President of the United States asking some of these thugs and rioters and mob members to come to the White House and sit down and have a conversation. JD, when people are breaking the law, they don't get an invitation to the White House. They ought to be getting an invitation to the big house. And this is not about race. This is about law and order. And I'm so grateful for African-American leaders like Charles Barkley and others who have said that Martin Luther King Jr. would be appalled at the kind of goings-on that have happened in Missouri because this violates everything that he gave his life for, which was non-violent protest. And if you think something is wrong, then go through the proper authorities, go through the proper law, and if you violate the law, then suffer willingly for having done so. And this is just an anathema to everything that the civil rights movement was truly all about and what it accomplished.
Mike, a minute and a half remains. Let me correct myself. The stepfather is being investigated now. He has not formally been charged. Mike, you mentioned audience at the White House for some of the protesters. And of course, Al Sharpton has emerged as, for lack of a better term, the White House representative in these situations. Al, of course, coming to prominence in New York City. And speaking of New York, now there are concerns about a grand jury decision there. With the minute that remains, are you concerned that Sharpton and others, regardless of the outcome of the grand jury, will view this as round two in racial protests?
Well, if there are cameras to be found, Al Sharpton will be there. And if we really want to stop some of this, just remove all the cameras and all the microphones and the notebooks. And I promise you, Al Sharpton will disappear as quickly as the morning fog under a 100-degree sun. He will disappear immediately because it's all about Al Sharpton. And even no matter what the grand jury came forth with, Al Sharpton continued to defy what was the sworn testimony and continued to tell a narrative that was proven to be untrue. He ought to be ashamed of himself. And the White House should distance themselves from him, not invite him over to give them advice.
More outspoken advice from Mike Huckabee, his new book, God, Guns, Grits, and Gravy. Governor, we thank you for your time, and America's Forum continues after this.